You posted that link on the CCM's Facebook page?
I just posted it from my personal one,
Okay.
just to try to get my people out. Let's
Okay.
see. Stream is live. Let's see here. I want to just double check that it's public and that people can see it. Let's see. Yep, it looks like it's public. That's good. So I guess we'll wait for people to file in here.
Dope. Good. Let me share this.
Okay. I'm just going to have this open so I can monitor
You have
this.
a link that you can email me, the live YouTube link, because I'm not finding it on your page. That way I can just post it.
Let's see here. See if this works. Where did Zoom go?
Or you could just message it to me, yeah, on Zoom, if that's easier.
Let's see here.
There's the chat.
So here's the chat. See if that works.
Okay, cool. Let me copy this. Let me see if I can figure out how to open my...
Okay.
Weird. Can't see the access. All good. Oh, you know what I can do? Airdrop. Cool.
And now we wait, the fun part, for people to file in
Fun
here.
part, man. I really want to hear your stuff that you're working on, man.
You and me
Do you
both.
have anything up?
I literally just started this project like 2 weeks ago, so I've got like a minute of produced music, and I feel very good about it. You know, but
I feel you.
I'd say like I think the strategy for this is like it's going to be an EP that I release. So it's going to be like probably a 5-track EP, but it's like really composed, super kind of symphonic stuff. So they really kind of belong together. So what I might do is I might kind of tease some singles and stuff here and there as time goes, and then maybe like second half of the year, maybe like release one song, and then maybe a second song like at the very end of the year, and then release the whole EP sort of thing. I think that's going to be the strategy.
Gotcha.
But if I had to describe it, I'd say it's industrial impressionism is what I would call it.
Oh, I like that.
So if you could imagine like Nine Inch Nails with Debussy, it's kind of like what this is.
Oh, I dig that, man. I can't wait to hear it.
It's wild.
Sounds really cool.
So we'll see.
It sounds like it could be pretty syncy.
Hopefully, you know, I guess we'll find out. But hello, everyone who's tuning in here. We're just idling as people file in here. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in a few minutes here. But let me know in the chat here if you can hear us okay, if all the levels are good. Keep me posted on that. Everything good? Everybody feeling good? Everybody's good? Everything's good? All good?
There we go. I'm just setting up my audio here. All right, there we go.
All right.
Sweet. Got the link.
Got the link. We got some people in.
The link. Hey guys.
So let's see. I sound a little too loud and Daniel's a little too soft. So let's see. Can we mess with that?
I can turn myself up. Is that a little better?
Yeah. You turn up. I'll turn down.
Okay. Is that better?
I hear you great. Let's see. I'll turn myself down a little bit. Okay, how about that for my level? Kia with the
Check.
pro audio mix here.
Key in the house already?
Kia's in the house already.
Keo.
Let's see here. How's that for levels? Are we good?
You guys hear me okay? Check, check, check.
Checking. You don't really need to hear me that well. It's more important that you hear Daniel well.
I need to hear you, brother.
I'm just gonna facilitate here. But anyway, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Chris Capica. I'm the Dean, Chief Academic Officer at California College of Music. For those of you who are encountering our channel for the first time, welcome. This is our first YouTube live stream ever. So hopefully all the moving parts work out and I don't have a conniption midway through because of some miswiring or something like this, so bear with me on the technical side. This is our first artist clinic of the year, so we try to do these every few months with different members from outside of CCM's orbit who are really active professionals in the industry who are generous enough to lend us their insights and perspectives on their work in the scene and kind of what the modern music business looks like. And with me today is someone I've had the pleasure to meet recently, but I've had a chance to check out a lot of his work, and there's some really bang up stuff here. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, actor. He's been writing with all kinds of artists. He has incredible aesthetic range, writing pop tunes, country tunes, R&B, soul tunes, working with artists like Boyz II Men, Mary J. Blige, Pitbull, Pink. He has his own solo project called Daniel, spelled D-V-N-I-E-L, and he's coming out with new music next week. He's got a release coming out, I think, a week from today, right? So perhaps you'll talk more about that later on. But
Sure.
Feel free to check out his project, Daniel. He's going to share some of that music today. He's going to share some works that he's done with other artists. He's going to talk about sort of what the modern business landscape looks like for a songwriter, sort of what you have to kind of know going in, what you have to know for the future of the business. And so with me today, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Daniel Capellaro. So Daniel, thanks so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
What a wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. Well, hello, guys. Virtually to everybody out there, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Huge fan of what Chris is doing with California College of Music and what you guys are doing as well. Shout out to Kia for making the initial introduction to Chris and I, so thank you, Kia, for that. As Chris mentioned, I am a singer, writer, producer, an artist here based in Los Angeles, originally from the East Coast, from New York, Philadelphia area. I've been in LA for roughly 20 years. I'll be celebrating my 20th anniversary this coming summer. It has been, as you can imagine, just like everybody in the industry, lots of ups, lots of downs, mostly downs, lots of pick-me-back-ups, and figuring out how to operate on a professional level in the music industry is, as many of you can attest to, is a full-time job. It's not just the technicalities of being able to, read music or be able to write music, but it's so much built on a city that's based on networking. I have found that in the last 4 or 5 years of my 20 years of being in LA have been the most productive. It's sort of given me a chance to put a team together of folks that I've been working with on and off for many years, and sort of hone in as to what my role is within that team and how I can make any sort of money, make any living in this industry. Because ultimately, we love writing music, we love creating, we love live shows whenever they're going to happen, knock on wood. But, the idea of being able to do this and actually make some money at it, so that we only do this, is really a dream for everybody. Just a little bit about me before I sort of dive into the creative stuff that I've been fortunate to be a part of. And Chris, feel free to interrupt if there's audio issues or anything else. I will shut up and tweak my end of things here on my end. But I came out here at 19 years old, signed with a record offer from Interscope Records as an artist. I had been approached when I was younger, 19 years old in New York, to sign a production deal with a producer who then we drove cross country after recording a demo in New York. And he signed me to a production deal, and I came out to LA and shopped. This was back in the day when record labels were heads of labels like L.A. Reid and Tommy Mottola and Clive Davis and Peter Edge were taking meetings in person with prospective talent, way before streaming, way before social media and all that stuff. So now I'm really dating myself. So during this whole process, you not only sort of build a skin, but you kind of hone in on the business of it. We as artists, we as songwriters, we as producers are a business. We are a brand. And it's knowing that brand and learning that brand and the role of that brand within the community that we're living in and how we can operate is everything. And so at a very early age, I was forced to be in this environment with these incredibly successful and older folks who were essentially at that time with major labels were telling you what to do. You know, you sound too pop, we need to make you a little bit more rock, or you sound a little too rock, we got to make you a little bit more pop. And it was at the time when L.A. Reid had just signed Avril Lavigne, and her album had been really hitting, and they were looking for a male version of that at Arista to sort of pick up the male torch, as it were, and do that version of it. So in the midst of my producer at the time, the production deal I had with this guy, we traveled all over and took various meetings with all these heads of labels, and I finally made my way to LA with no real direction, no real idea, just a dream and a few bucks in my pocket, literally. And we took a meeting at Universal, took a meeting at Interscope, and it was at Interscope when I met Jimmy Iovine's nephew, a guy named DJ, who had just signed Eminem, or just signed 50 Cent rather, who took an interest in me, took an interest in the 8-song demo I had put together, this guy had produced. And so we decided that this was going to be a home, and so we negotiated, and I had a record deal on the table. It was like a dream come true, just landing here. Who gets that? You know, that's super, super rare. Well, in the midst of this is back in like 2002, I had another opportunity to be to audition for a pilot for the Monkees. They were remaking the show on NBC, and I wind up going through the process of auditioning and getting callbacks and stuff, and then book the show, and then find out later through my attorney at the time that the Monkees also had a record contract attached to it through 19 Entertainment. And so I had to essentially make a decision. I had a record offer from Interscope Records from Jimmy Iovine for around $800,000 record advance for one album. And I'll get into that later as to what those differences are between, and very rarely do they happen now since we're living in a singles market, as most of you know. And I had this other record advance from 19 Entertainment, who does American Idol, for $2,500. Now, the disparity in those numbers was obviously great, but I also had an opportunity with the show to not only act in it and to make network NBC money, but they were going to bring me in as one of the writers on the show. And my attorney at the time thought that that might be a better opportunity because there's no guarantee with the label, there's no guarantee that they're even going to put your songs out, and you're going to be in debt to these people for close to $1 million at 19 years old. And so the music industry was really, really sort of finding its foothold in so far as changing at the time. And so I had to make this really, really, really tough decision, and I opted to go with the show. And then we were set to shoot the show on a Thursday, and I was staying at a buddy's house because, again, I didn't have an apartment yet. I wasn't living here full time. And I get a phone call like on Tuesday before the Thursday shoot. This is after I turned the producer I had just driven cross country with, that I had given him over a year of my life, just told him thanks but no thanks, I'm going to do this show. I just told Jimmy Iovine thanks but no thanks, I'm going to do this other thing. And they call us on Tuesday and they say the show's not happening. I said, what do you mean the show's not happening? He said, well, Simon Fuller, the head of 19 Entertainment, who owns the name The Monkees, who bought the name The Monkees for like $50 million, has decided to put all these monkey bands all over the world to help promote the brand. And NBC caught wind of this, and they don't want to have anything to do with that because they want to have brand integrity and be able to operate and control that solely. And so they told him to go find another network to do this. And I about had a heart attack. I thought, oh my God, is it too late to call back Jimmy and apologize? But again, it's Interscope. Once you say no to that, you're done. And so I was literally back to square one. And any artist, any writer, any producer knows that feeling of just, do I just throw in the towel? Do I go back to, at the time, Virginia, where I was living, where my parents were, and just cash in? I said no. So I found a restaurant that had positioned itself, that was open, that was in Brentwood, California, that had a lot of rich people. And I figured, screw it, why not? I'll work there. There's a lot of people there with money. There's a lot of people there with status. Who knows who I may meet? And I'll get back to it. It'll help me get back into the, into the city, into the stream of things, and I can always play. And so I met this guy, and he was at the time head of Universal. This guy named something Cooper at the time, and he took a liking to me, and I gave him my CD. And Universal called me. This is like a month or two after I moved here, after I didn't have a job, after I didn't have the show, I didn't have the Interscope, I had nothing. And they said, well, we're interested in seeing you play live. When can we do that? So I lied. I said, well, I've got a show next month. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anybody out here. I didn't have any idea where I'd be playing. And so I go on to Craigslist. I find a bass player, because as we all know, bass players, for the most part, know everybody else in the band. And they're usually the hardest members to find outside of keyboard players when you're putting a band together. And I asked him, he had just gotten fired from a band called Lifehouse, and he was a little bitter, a little angry, and I said, this is perfect. It means he's got some drive like me. I'm a little bitter and angry at the time, and I don't want to be working at a restaurant forever. And so we put a band together. I email back Universal. I say, yeah, we're playing at SIR rehearsal space. Grab a U-Haul, bring all my stuff from my apartment into SIR after I find out that they don't like when you showcase at SIR because it's a rehearsal space. I didn't know that. And I make the place look like my living room. I put my couch and my rug down and tea candles out and a little, wine in the back on ice, just to make it really cozy for these people to come in. And we did. We played a great set, and we almost got an offer, and then that fell through. And then you go, great, back at the restaurant, back networking, and through my 13 years of working at that restaurant, which is what it took, I changed my point of view about the industry, that I wasn't going to chase the industry anymore. I wasn't going to chase the record labels. I wasn't going to try and chase getting signed, even though that would have gotten me out initially. I was going to focus on my catalog. I was going to focus on the other 25, 30 songs that I had written but didn't finish, and I was going to focus on meeting people, like-minded people, that did have those connections that I needed to be able to get those songs heard by those executives and the people that could actually change something with your music. Again, this is right before streaming. And so I met a music producer during this stay at the restaurant that I was working at, and he brought me in for a initial meeting, and I played him some of my music. I had already sent him an email, and he was interested. He liked my voice, he liked my writing style, and so he says, well, where are you from? I said, man, I lived everywhere. I lived in Tennessee, lived in Virginia, my parents are from outside Philadelphia, from New York. He's like, I can hear that in your writing. A lot of your travels have, you can hear a little country, a little R&B, a little, and I had met all these really cool artists through this other producer that I had come here with, like the Mary J. Blige and stuff. So he said, well, how are you with top lining? I said, what's top lining? He said, well, I have a track. It's not really finished, but just go in the booth and put your headphones on and just write a song on the spot. I'm like, I had never done that before, because here I am, 90% of the stuff either on piano or mostly on my acoustic guitar, writing songs, writing the track, as it were, making sure the composition itself is done. So I had never done that before. So we wind up writing 3 songs in that one day, the first day that we met. And it was a really cool opportunity for me, not just the meet, but it was a chance for me to explore and flex, as it were, that muscle that I had never really utilized before, which was a whole different way of coming to a song, a whole different way where I'm hearing a beat or a rhythm without ever hearing another melody associated with that guitar and bass line that he had in the first track, for instance, or the beat. And it was a chance for me to just sort of like throw up on the mic and just come up with all these melodies that we wind up sitting in the studio and Frankensteining this thing together. The verse, this sounds like a verse. This sounds like a pre-hook. Nah, man, that pre-hook sounds more like a chorus. Like that 8-bar thing you do, let's just cut that in 4 and like we'll make that the post-chorus. And like we were Frankensteining 25, 30 takes of just different. And for me, it was eye-opening because I thought, holy crap, this is a whole different way of writing music and collaborating with somebody that I could really utilize. So fast forward, we wind up getting a couple of cuts together, and we're going to play some of those today. I'll show you guys how they went from just throwing up on a mic to it becoming somewhat of a demo to utilizing the connections, the business aspect to get somebody of importance on the song in order to have that song have more potency to then pitch. And so all the while we were writing, just building the catalog. Me being at the restaurant, working usually doubles, getting there like 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, working till like 8, 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock, co-managing the restaurant simultaneously, and then leaving the restaurant and working with Emil at the studio from like 10 p.m. till 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. One time we watched the sunrise come up, like 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. Just, that's all I wanted to do. And just like going to the gym, just like exercising any type of brain muscle or physical, your body, you just get better. The more you write, the more you produce, the better you get. And in the midst of this time in my life, which was about 6, 7 years ago, I was still working at the restaurant, and one of my clients at the restaurant was we had a lot of celebrity clients because they, for the most part, lived. It was a neighborhood Italian restaurant, and so they lived there. Was Bonnie Hunt, and I obviously big fan of Bonnie Hunt, and she was always so sweet and just very funny. And I realized in my whole career from when I was younger till then that it was only when I asked for something or when I sort of put myself out there that what's the worst case people will say no. Like if you're coming off, I realized that when Bonnie came in, I had about a year of knowing this woman and pouring her flat water and bringing her fish and bringing serving her and getting to know her, but more importantly her getting to know me on a personal level that I didn't know. I was waiting for my moment to ask her for help and realistically building up the courage to do so. And so it was only after a year or so of her being there, and again having all this failure as far as I'm concerned, all this disappointment in my music career outside of just building catalog, to have the balls just to ask her. And I just said, hey Bonnie, in the middle of her taking a drink of wine, I was like, can I be on your show? She had a TV show on NBC called The Bonnie Hunt Show. And she said, well, Daniel, what do you do? And I said, well, as you know, I'm a singer. And she said, well, do you have a CD? So I run out to my car, grab a CD, because again, it's like our business card at the time. It's like I could send her my Spotify link. And I give her a CD. And a week later, the producers of the show call me. They say, how does March 1st sound for you to be our musical guest? And I'm thinking, wait, what? All you have to do is ask? That? Why wasn't I doing this the whole time? That was the biggest concern I had. Holy moly, I could have been a lot further. I wouldn't have to still be at the restaurant. So I started utilizing that notion of not ever coming off a annoying or desperate ever, but really just truly building an honest friendship with these people that, like Carson Daly, like John Travolta, the people that would come in that were my clients for years, and building up a trust with them on a personal level, and never once asking, and again, I positioned myself at that restaurant because I was the only non-immigrant working there, so I stood out like a sore thumb. Ironically, much to the opposite of LA, I was the only musician actor working at the restaurant, which is unheard of. So I stood out like a sore thumb in the best way possible, a golden sore thumb. And so I was able to parlay these relationships that I was building into opportunity, and connecting dots where there wouldn't have been a connection otherwise. So I do the show, and the show opens up some doors for me. I'm able to meet some producers and meet some other writers. And during this time, I had a client I became very good friends with, a gentleman named Mark Caruso, who owned and operated a publishing company based here in LA. And I knew that about Mark, and he knew that I was a singer-songwriter, but never did we really discuss initially doing anything on a professional level together. It was just, I'd sneak him a glass of Amarone every now and then, and we just sit and talk shop, and we just had a mutual respect for one another that went way beyond music. It was just a friendship that was building. And his whole family would come in, and so we were always just really close and liked each other a lot. And so it was during this time when the song I did for Pitbull and then the song I did for Boyz II Men got some notice. I was able to sort of get some notice as a writer, and this was all through this one producer that had these connections. And again, just like I said before, it's where you position yourself. His studio is smack dab in North Hollywood, in an undisclosed, you wouldn't even know what it looked like on the outside. As soon as you walked in, it was his studio, Adam Messenger's studio, where Nasri Atois was. They had created Magic, the band Magic, and Greg Pagani, and all the incredible producers and songwriters and musicians. And so it was a community, it was a commune, so it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to have someone like Chris Brown just come in, and they were working on a song together, and Chris just stick his head into Emil's studio and say, "Hey, what you working on?" And he say, "Check out this track," and plays it. And that's literally how I got the cut with Pitbull. So all of which is to say, the relationship was building with this guy Mark, and I had gotten sort of a soft offer from Sony ATV to sign a publishing deal. And this was my ticket. I figured, wow, I'm not going to get signed to a major label, and those are kind of becoming not a thing anymore. Maybe I get signed to a publishing company. I don't know what that is, but if there's money involved, maybe I could use that to pay rent instead of having to come to the restaurant and essentially take up my time. Because every bit of time I was spent at the restaurant or at just another job in general, you're exhausted, and that energy is then exuded, and you can't put that into your creative outlets. And so I turned them down because it wasn't right at the moment. I would still have to. The deal points were that they required me to write a certain amount of songs, like all publishing companies do. But the amount of money that was involved, I'd still have to be at the restaurant and work, and one didn't justify the end to me at the time. And I knew if I just held out a little longer and maybe get another cut or two, that my worth would go up a little bit more, and I could sign to a bigger deal, a deal that made more sense. And so that's exactly what happened. I waited and paid more dues and stayed at the restaurant another like 4 more years or so by the time I got my first offer, until finally Mark was at a position when he could offer me something that made sense for both of us. And so I signed a publishing deal 5 years ago, almost to the day. And so the publishing deal itself, as many of you may already know about publishing in general, but publishing deals in general, co-publishing deals, there's 2 kinds. There's a publishing deal, co-publishing deal, or an administrative deal, an admin deal. Co-publishing is they own and operate usually 50% of your publishing on songs. Some publishing companies which they can pay a lot more money. Sometimes we'll take 100% of your publishing. But this was the first time I was approached by something that said, listen, your publishing's everything, right? I was always taught by my peers and by people I worked with, don't give publishing away. Publishing's your gold. That's your life, right? You hear these horror stories of like the Beatles catalog and David Bowie and Prince and all these catalogs that are like being sold or stolen, and your publishing is everything. So I thought, well, I've got to readjust here. If this opportunity allows me to just do music where I don't have to work at a restaurant, and you're giving me enough money so that I can do that, why not take 50%? This is a partnership at the end of the day. I'm writing music that you then could pitch and potentially place, and then you recoup that money that they're sending you. And, then you can go into the second year or the third year or, renegotiate. And again, this is someone I truly admired and respected and trusted and wanted to build that relationship with. So it was a no-brainer for me at that point. And it was probably the most exciting, outside of getting married, it was like the most exciting day of my life. Signing that deal and being able to like walk out of this restaurant that was my home for 13 years and I had paid all these dues in to be able to do this full time. And for me, it was time. I got my time back. And so I think that's when everything clicked. And all the while, the music industry was changing so much and so quickly when we sort of took this leap from 99-cent downloads to getting paid 0.00064 cents to a stream. And for some reason, our musical community just accepted that as fact, and that's what it needs to be. But then having to reassess and say, okay, what is my role? I'm a writer, I can produce, I can play a little guitar and piano, but really what is the strongest part that I have? It's my connection to people. This training that I'd had, these 13 years of training that I had and all the moves that I had done when I was a kid with my family, it was training to be among people and sort of be able to connect the dots, as it were. So I really wanted to take advantage of this new opportunity, this publishing deal, and I really wanted to give as many songs as I possibly could to Mark and the team to be able to give them the artillery that they needed to be able to get these songs potentially pitched and then potentially placed. And so I was doing that for 3 years, and thank God they kept re-signing me because they saw the quality and they saw that it was continuing, and I was working with other producers and other writers, building, still playing live, still doing my own artist project and figuring out what that was. And it's constantly evolving, and that's beautiful. And it's, even as a writer, constantly evolving. And during this time, I was able to actually go to Nashville and work for the first time. I'd been to Nashville, but I never went on a work trip there and got to be in a room with really great, amazing writers, country music writers, which is, I spent a lot of time in Tennessee and Virginia, like I said. And this was a chance to be in a whole different brain, country music in general, the storytelling of that, where it's so lyric driven, was so different than the pop world that we were like, let's get to the hook, we got 15 seconds to get to the chorus. And so it was, again, working out, as I call it. It's working out the songwriting muscles, and it's how many songs can I write this week? Okay, I did 3 songs last week. Let me see if I can get 5. You know what? I got enough time this week. Let me just get 10 songs done. And then when the songs are done, let me rewrite them. And then when they're rewritten, let me rewrite them again. Let me change the BPM. Let me change the key it's in. It's one of the things I had learned during that whole process was just that. Once the song is finished, the song is never, ever completely finished until it's mastered and it's out into the world. And even then, you can remaster it or remix it and re-release it. Reworking songs that I thought were finished, because as we know, after year 1, year 2, production sounds a little dated. The lyrics are a little dated. We wouldn't say that now. but there's a couple melodies here that really work. So let's grab the stuff that works and rework the songs. There's no harm in that. There's no harm at all. And so I was revisiting my catalog, to see which songs had potential. And it was during that time with this producer, Emil, that I got the Pitbull song with, that these opportunities started popping up. And I think we could start playing one of the songs, Chris. What had happened was this. We had an opportunity presented to us, Emil and I, to do some music for One Direction. It was a connection that Nasri had and said, listen, there's no guarantee these songs are going to get placed, but I knew that the manager that we were sending them to, or the A&R rather, they were actually going to listen to them. So this was like, wow, that's massive, just to be able to get that connection in at all. So we put together various amounts of tunes. I think we did like 4 or 5 songs, and went to the wee hours of the morning on them because we knew there was some sort of a deadline on this stuff. And this was still while I was working at the restaurant, so I was exhausted. And then a band called The Wanted, out of the UK, this man band, as it were. Nadri had done some music, had done a song or two, I think, for them, and said, well, maybe it'd be a good pitch for them. So we had the track, we had my vocals, because I was the singer, I was a demo vocalist for it. And all of a sudden, one day, Chris Brown comes in the recording studio, comes into Nasri's studio, which was across the way from Emil's studio, and says, what are you guys working on? And he hears this track that we're playing, and he peeks his head in, and I was at work while this happened, so I wasn't even there. I got the phone call afterwards. And he says, what are you working on? Oh, I got the song that we're kind of working on. So Chris says, well, can I hop on it? He's, yeah, Chris, you want to hop on it? Yeah, get in the booth, man. So fires it up, and all Chris does is sing the chorus. So the verses are me, and Chris sings the chorus. So Emil calls me up, and he says, yo, you won't believe this, like, Chris is on the chorus. Chris who? Chris Brown just came in and he recorded the chorus of the song. You're on the verses. And I'm like, well, what the heck, man? Like, yeah, he had to go. Like, he just wanted to drop his vocal on it. I'm like, well, what do we do now? He says, well, at this point, he had just put out an album, so he wasn't interested in putting it out. So we thought, okay, well, we've got me on the verses of the song. Let's pitch it to rappers. So at the time, we had to find rappers that didn't hate Chris Brown or that had worked with him in the past, because this is right during the time when the whole Rihanna thing happened, and Chris wasn't liked by some folks in the industry, by most everybody at the moment at that time. So we wind up pitching it to rappers, and we wind up sending it to Pitbull's camp because Chris's name is on it. Again, it's not mine. I'm nobody. They wind up sending it to Pitbull, who was in Miami, who was, on an aside, interesting note, records all his vocals for the most part in a bathroom in a hotel room, and then sends you an MP3, not even a WAV file. And those are his final vocals in MP3. So he winds up putting his rap on it, puts on the verses, and sends it back to us, and we go, this is a done record, and he's willing to release it. That's a cut. So Chris, maybe now I can show you guys like what the demo sounded and what the crappy quality, meaning like we just had the song. We knew that the chorus was hot. We knew that it sounded dancey. It sounded kind of like what he was doing, but we didn't really know where to go with it. So we could play the demo if you want to cue that up.
I've been searching for something.
There's the verse, and this is for the band The Wanted.
I've been waiting. It's coming. It's coming. Heartbeat is racing. It's pumping. It's pumping. I wanna go crazy or something. Or something. So throw your lighters in the air, make the people stop.
That's me and Nasri on the pre and the chorus.
What happened here?
In the air, make the people stop.
Let's see, does it stop playing at a certain point? That's odd. Let me refresh.
or something. So throw your lighters in the air, make the people stop and stare, let the music take you there. We could be anywhere tonight, but we're right here underneath the lights. I see the colors in your eyes, beautiful rainbows all around us. We got the whole world in our hands. This is a night we won't forget. Whatever happens in the end, I hope we meet again. 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 I hope we meet again.
There you go. You kind of have like the idea of like that was the chorus. That was the chorus. Thanks, Chris, for playing that. So like that was the chorus of the song, and that's what we had Chris on. We could be anywhere tonight, but we're right here underneath the lights. That part. And so Nazir and I were both stacking our vocals on it, but it was not produced. I mean, this is a track that was not even mixed with the vocals. This was just demo, right? So that's what Chris had heard when he comes to the studio. So Chris gets on the chorus of that, and then this is ultimately what the song sounded like. We could play the release version of it, which you guys can hear what they changed. So that's kind of thanks, man. So you guys get a kind of like an idea as to like a demo that the demo quality was not great, as you could hear, but it was because we had Chris come in and cut that chorus that gave it the potency to be able to pitch. And again, 1 in a million chance, 1 out of a 500,000 that could happen. But it's a matter of putting yourself in the environment. This is the business of, right? This is how do I make a living at this? It's putting myself getting heard, and we'll open this at the end because I'd love to be able to hear some of your questions as to, how do I do that? How do I get in the room? How do I send it to somebody to listen? Especially nowadays when everyone's just so saturated with stuff. And this leads me to my second point in this whole discussion about the business of, is that as producers, especially because songwriters are producers. Producers are songwriters. It's not one or the other. Producer's responsibility is to create a track that has space in which the composition can live. The main focus of the song is the song. If it is just an instrumental, then it is just the producer. But in that, there is still songwriting, as far as I'm concerned. There's still writing of melody, there's still writing of beats, there's still writing of parts. That's still writing. When you're writing a composition, it's still production, it's still arrangement. This is my verse, this is my chorus, this is my pre-chorus. Oftentimes, the song itself can be diluted or sometimes even completely unheard if the production is wrong or if the production is too much. And it's usually the latter that's the problem that I have found in my career, is that the production takes away from the song itself. And that really the time to say, okay, what are we writing the song for? Who are we writing the song for? Whether it be for an artist pitch or whether it be for a sync whether it be for a synchronization for a TV show or whatever. What are we having reference, and what am I gonna and what are my references with respect to production? Meaning, going on Spotify and listening to songs that are, or Apple Music or whatever your streaming service is, listening to songs that are comparable in tone, in lyrical sentiment, in key, in production, in producers involved. Maybe there's a producer on this track that you're trying to get your song to because you think he or she would really like it. All of those things need to be taken into consideration when composing a song for pitch. I find it can work both ways, that you can overdo it and you can be so focused, so heartedly focused on writing for the pitch that you lose the magic that once was in the room when you got that piano, right? And you got that melody and the melody's so fire, and the lyric itself, the one line that because that's what the songs are. It's that one hook line that you don't forget. That's your hook line. And it's got that, it just feels right. And so I found when I was starting my solo project, Daniel with the V, and that's really, again, for branding purposes, I was starting to collaborate with producers and DJs internationally. And I would send them songs that I thought, hey, this could be cool. Like, this could be a cool EDM track for you. Or this could be a cool collaboration. Or I want to get my vocals on stuff because my territories that I'm hitting, for instance, are like here in the United States. And I want to be able to get my voice heard in Lithuania. Well, how do I do that? Well, those producers in Lithuania, they need singers. And the singers here, they need producers. So it's not unheard of, and especially nowadays when social media is such where you can contact anybody you want whenever you want to contact them. I was just starting to throw out, DMs. I was sliding to every producer's DM. Hey, yo, I got some music. Here's some stuff that I put out. I'm a singer. Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm trying to get into their territory. So I want them to like my voice, but I also want them to know, hey, send me a track. I will write it, and I will send you vocal stems from my house, from my apartment at the time. I was like, I've got a mic, I've got speakers, I've got a little Scarlett Focusrite, and that's all I need as a singer. So I will send you my stems, and then you can do it. You can deal with the release and the mix and all that stuff there. And it actually started working. I noticed that when I was sending them these fully produced songs for them to listen to, that I wasn't getting as much of a response as opposed to just sending an acoustic stripped version of the song. And I realized at that point is, listen, as producers, and I'm sure the folks that are tuning in now, the producers that are tuning in now will tell you too, someone sends you a produced song, you hear that song with the production, right? You're focused on like, oh man, that synth line's whack, or like that bass line is like kind of fire, or like that guitar, whatever that thing is you gravitate towards, or like the melody's cool, yeah. But if you send somebody a song that's just piano and vocal, you have this as a producer, your creative juices are going crazy. You're going, man, I could hear this like with this, I could hear it with this, I could hear it with this. And if the goal is to get that producer that you're sending it to excited and want to be on board with working with you, why not give them a blank canvas? Why not just focus on these songs that are just stripped for pitch? So I started going back in, again, reworking my catalog, going back in all these songs that were produced, that in my mind were finished, which again doesn't exist. And I started taking all the production out. So I start meeting with producers. I go, listen, I got this opportunity. We've got this guy I just reached out to, wants some songs. He's in Germany. We'll split everything evenly. I'm a big fan of that. I always agree. If there's 3 people in the room, that's 33, 34. Always. 34 usually to the artist. And so we'll split everything evenly. And by the way, I got these master points. There's the master, the recording. And since I'm not signed to a label, and since my publishing company is only their assets are only with my publishing, I own and operate all my master. So that's huge. So I can use that as collateral. Hey, I'll give you 10% of the master. I'll give you 20% of the master. What is, at the end of the day, 0% of all of that money when you're going to do it, when you just give someone 20% of the master? It's a negotiating coin. It's a tool. It's like our Bitcoin that we can use as musicians. And labels, greedy labels as they are and were, they want to keep the master. They want to control that. So if an independent, your biggest asset is your publishing, your writing, and your master. And so I was stripping all these songs down in hopes of, I just want them interested in doing it. And that's ultimately what happened with this next song that Chris will play. This is the acoustic version of the song. Again, we had produced this song out entirely, and we decided, you know what? I'm going to strip all this down and just keep it acoustic, and I'm going to pitch this to a couple DJs, see who likes the song, let them produce it however they want to do it. It'll be a co-release with them, featuring my vocal on it, and then at some point, I'll release the acoustic version of it. And yet, that'll be another version of the song that'll come out, because we live in a singles market, and you can release 5, 6, 7 versions of the same song. Don't ever think you can't do that. Good example is I had my first single off my solo project is called Lie to Me, and that was a fully produced version of it. We stripped it down specifically for pitch, and I wound up putting that song out a year after the original came out. I don't know, amassed like 80, 90,000 streams off the release version of it. The acoustic one, in 1 year, has almost today 200,000 streams, and it's totally stripped. And that was always the demo. So similarly, the song that Chris is about to play, the demo that we sent out to be fully produced, I wound up re-releasing that as well, and I'm seeing similar results. So this is the demo of Starlight.
Sometimes I think about you. Sometimes I think about you. When I do, I see the real you. Reach past the stars, yeah, and break through the ceiling. Some nights I worry about you. Wide awake, I dream about you. When I do, I see the real you. I love seeing you, yeah. I don't wanna watch you fall. I don't wanna watch you leave. Baby, you're a wreck, but I'm a wreck too, and we need a little honesty. It might be too much for you. I know we're not bulletproof. Open your eyes, yeah, there's starlight inside ya. Yeah. You got it, don't lose it. You're a comet that's shooting. Sometimes it's harder to breathe. True life, just take it from me. Lie awake, I worry about you. I worry about you. Yeah. Hear me out, you can trust me. Sit me down, I won't judge you. It's alright, keep taking your time. You don't gotta throw it all away now. I don't wanna watch you fall. I don't wanna watch you lead.
This is so minimal, the production. It's piano. We add a little string to it. I wrote it with a duo named Schmarks and Sabby, who are insanely talented, and they mainly are in the house scene. They are house producers, but they've gone to schools for music. I think Sabby's a Berkeley grad, and they're talented as hell, and she could play piano, and I wanted to do something that was out of their wheelhouse, that was true to the composition of the song, that we didn't worry about this. And so it was a risk for them too. Like, we don't know what this is going to sound like. So we send it off to producers, and there's no like, hey, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that. They're working for free. This is collaboration at this point. They're working for free financially, but I'm also going to be giving them a portion of the master, which they're like, oh, okay, that's a large portion of the master. That's negotiating power. That's a tool. So I sent it to this guy named Max Billion, who I'd done Lie to Me with. And I said, yo, if you want to hit this production, I'll give you an even split of the master on this song. And so he came back with this, and this wound up being my second single, Starlight. Same exact song.
Sometimes I think about you. Sometimes I think about you. When I do, I see the real you. Reach past the stars, yeah, and break through the ceiling. Some nights I worry about you. Wide awake, I dream about you. when I do, I see the real you. I love seeing you, yeah. I don't wanna watch you fall, I don't wanna watch you leave. Baby, you're a wreck, but I'm a wreck too, and we need a little honesty. It might be too much for you. I know we're not bulletproof. Open your eyes at the starlight inside you. I know we're not bulletproof.
There you go. That is such a cool example of, like, had I sent him a produced version of the song, he may not have even created that. It was like giving him bare bones minimal. And I never dreamed that the song could even go in that direction, and I loved it because it was so different than the original. He wound up creating a whole post-chorus out of it with this drop, and really he gravitated towards one word of the song, bulletproof. And that was going to be the title of the song, but we had all these mass shootings, school shootings during this time, and again, branding wise and trying to be responsive as to what's going on in the world around you while you're putting out music, we knew that that was not the right title. And so we went back to the original title of the song, which was Starlight. And so decided to put that out. As of today, as of yesterday, I have 2 DJs doing remixes on that song, which will be released at some point, and we'll figure out what those releases are. Another example of, just because the song is out into the ethers doesn't mean that the song can never be re-released, and find a different mask to wear for it, and find a different arrangement for it, different production of it. And so in different markets like certain types of songs, I love going on my analytics and seeing which songs get played more frequently in Australia or in Germany, or in all that information, which is at our fingertips now, is so amazing. It's such a huge tool that we have as creators, as musicians and artists. We didn't have that even 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. So we can see that, and we need to figure out ways to use that information to our benefit. If you're getting played in Sydney, for instance, in Sydney, Australia, and that one song is getting played 25% more, 30% more, go online, reach out to promoters in Sydney, reach out to local radio stations in Sydney and say, hey, notice that my song is getting streamed a lot in your city, and it would really mean a lot to me if you could check out my song and maybe consider it to play on radio. That's how a lot of times I've been able to get radio play on songs, is just blind emails. And it's not 10 or 20 or 30. I'm emailing. Last year alone, I sent out 550 emails to radio promoters. And so you're emailing everybody and following up with them. Just checking back in with you. You have to be super tenacious about and strategize. I'm going to hit this person or this market with this song because I know it's going to do well. Or if it's not this promoter, I'm going to be hitting this, radio station, or maybe a DJ that lives there. Hey, would you be interested in doing a remix to this song? These guys that I released an EP called Nightside A. That came out a couple months ago. And I've got the follow-up, Nightside B, which is a remix collection of all 8 of these, or 7 of these songs, that's coming out next Friday. And each song is the same song from Nightside A, but it's the remix version of it. And so the collaborations I did were with 9 different DJs on this 9 songs. I'm doing 2 of the same on there. And I let them go for it. I send them the acoustic stems. I just send the vocals. That's it. Just the vocals, the BPM, and the key. Go crazy with it. The only rule is, in my conversations with all these producers, I said, I don't want it to sound like the original. I don't care if you go house, I don't care if you go progressive, I don't care if you go trance, I don't care what your genre is, but I want it to sound totally different than the original, because it gives me more artillery to be able to say, yo, you hear his first EP, but yo, this second EP, like, this version's crazy. Like, this is wild, which might get another producer interested to be like, yo, can I take a stab at this? The more you have, the better. Be selective, but like also realize like it's good to have multiple versions of your songs. It just gives you more power. And so when the pandemic hit in March, or February, but it really hit everybody, I think, stay at home, don't go out in March. I had been at the time, leading up until that point, operating like most of you guys, get in the car, unless you're a producer working from home, but I was collaborating with producers. I would be driving to these studios and collaborating with the artist or with the producer or with the other songwriters in that room. And so that was off the table. I couldn't do that anymore. And I had my wife and I at the time were living in Hollywood, and we were living in an apartment, and I knew I couldn't make too much noise. I knew the witching hours to record vocals were like, morning to like late afternoon. And so I bought a better quality mic. I bought a better interface. I contacted one of my co-writer friends. This is how Nightside A even began. And I said, yo, listen, I'm still in contract to my publisher. I still have to give them a certain amount of songs. I'm not going to not work anymore just because of the pandemic. I got to creatively figure out a way to like write music and collaborate with people. And thank God for Zoom and for, FaceTime and stuff. I can just operate. What's my role, right? Going back to the original, what's my role within this team of people that I know? That before it was even a team, what's my role within the people that I know? I said, well, why don't let me start with one song. So I said, let me just get back into production. So I started messing around with Logic, and truth be told, I record all my vocals in GarageBand. It's easy, it's fast, and I can still bounce out stems the same way I can anywhere else. So with any other DAW. So I just started producing, and I send this track that I started doing, which was kind of like funky and little piano, little guitar, and I sent this track over to a buddy of mine that I've written music with, a guy named Isaiah. And Isaiah and I wind up writing this song together. He winds up sending me some top line ideas over top of it. I'm like, yo, that one part that you sang, which was like his verse, I'm like, yo, this sounds like a chorus to me. Let me call my buddy Jed, who's the real producer that I know, that I work with, and send him my crappy ass stems and see if he can do anything with this thing. And so he's like, yo, this song's going to be cool, man. Like, I'll lay down some live bass over top of your program bass. I'll fix up some of those guitar licks that you have in there. So he sends it back to me, and it's the beginning of Pink Lemonade, which is the first single that I put out. And I go, dude, we did this in like a day. Like, we did this song super fast. So I hit up Jed. I said, man, you want to do more of these? He's like, yeah, man, this is fun. Like, let's do as many as we can. We're not doing anything else right now. Like, we're all stuck at home. So I called up Isaiah. I said, yo, man, let's do the opposite. Why don't you, instead of me creating a track, why don't you just send me a vocal? Just make sure it's to a click, but like, just send me a melody, period. So he sends me this like a cappella melody, and I throw in his vocal into Logic, and I start putting this track together underneath his vocal. And again, we tweak some lyrics, we tweak some melodies. I put my vocal on it, send it over to Jed again. Again, Jed creates this track within like a day. And again, none of these songs are mixed. I said, bro, guys, we just did 2 songs in 2 days. You want to do an album? And they go, yeah, why not? Like, this was easy. Like, this was fun. We had been working together for years prior, so we've already established this like working relationship. We know how each other works. We know what we like. We know what we're good at. But more importantly, these guys were invested because they knew that I wasn't just going to let these songs sit. They knew that there was a vehicle, because I've got my artist brand that I'm interested in putting music out. But more than anything, they knew that I trusted them with their abilities to be able to do it and let them take the lead on stuff. Ego aside, at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about Isaiah. It's not about Jed. It's about the songs. The songs need to be good. And there are a lot of really egotistical people that make crap music. And there are a lot of people who will put their ego aside and let the song live and breathe and change. And so we listen to these demos. We listen to Pink Lemonade over again. We go, you know what? I think it's the wrong key. Let me change the key. All right, well, we'll try it in this key. It's too high. Let's go down lower. Meanwhile, I'm doing like final vocals on all these songs, recording a single lead vocal, recording 4 dubs, 2 up top, 2 on the bottom, low octave, falsettos, harmonies, sending about 25, 30 vocal tracks, for which he's then going to be comping from. Jed is going to be comping from, putting together the actual meat and potatoes of the song. Well, you know what? I think the BPM's wrong. Well, you know what? I got to re-record it again. We wound up recording Pink Lemonade, I think, 6, 7 times. Final vocals 6 or 7 times. I got folders on folders of vocals just from that song because we wanted to make sure it was right. It felt, felt as done as it could possibly be and as good as it could possibly be. Every vocalist has a sweet spot in their vocal range and in the key that it's in. And every song has its sweet spot with its BPM. You've heard songs be like, yeah, this would be popping if it was just a little faster, or like, it's a little too fast. You can't really understand the words. So we did the same thing with the second song, Electric Currents. And then I started realizing, okay, I got to bring in a mixing team, and I'm going to start giving master percentages because, again, we're in a pandemic here. Like, there's not a lot of money coming in, and I can't keep spending money to hopefully get a demo done. So what's my collateral? My collateral is master and writing and publishing. I'll just give that away. I don't care. Everything to me is even. If we can get an album that then I can go out and market and produce. So then all the while, I'm figuring out my sound. I'm going to be celebrating my 40th birthday this year. And it was only last March, really, that I found this sound. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I even, and that's the beauty of being an artist and being a musician, is that if you're open to the change and you're open to the collaboration, the team that you work among will just sort of organically get created. And again, it's all based on this trust. And it's the thing that I think is the number one most important aspect of success in this industry, is building a team in which you can collaborate in safely, honestly, and organically, and all are working for the good of one product, whether that be the artist getting, the artist success, the song success, the team success, getting a joint publishing deal or record deal with everybody. But it's this team building, and that's only born from being open, honest, and more importantly, knowing that you yourself shouldn't, even if you shouldn't be doing everything. You shouldn't be writing, producing, mixing, and mastering your own work and sending it out as that. It doesn't make you look good. I shouldn't say it doesn't make you look good. It doesn't make you look. It makes you look like you don't work well with others. From a professional who's worked in the industry for as long, if I said, oh, you're doing all your own stuff, cool. Why do you not like working with people? Like, what's your deal? Like, are you just difficult to work with? Because if that's the case, you ain't gonna get too far in this. What's the harm in bringing in? Because you know what? The people that you hire in to mix, they have connections. They have people that you don't know that they mix for, that will eventually hear your stuff, that will maybe throw it on their Instagram page or their Facebook page, and then you don't know who gets to hear it. Bring them in, man. Like, bring them in. It's a beautiful thing to collaborate with people. Most of you, or all of you, I think, probably know Kia. Kia, if you're still on here, what up, girl? Kia is, as you guys know, I'm such a huge fan of, and good friend of, and I've just got such respect for her. And Kia, similarly, there's a gentleman named Simon J. and his partner Luke Shrestha that have a production duo, producer, writers, and stuff, and they've got a studio. Simon hit me up, said, "Yo, listen, I got this friend of mine named Kia. She's looking for to work with some other writers. Thought of you. Like, maybe we should come in and work together." And so I had been, just all I do is write with other people. This is before the pandemic. So we initially go into the room. We've never met. And this is getting to how do you do this now in a pandemic when everything's virtual? When you're sort of getting to know somebody that you've never met before, and doing something as intimately as writing a piece of music. Not just writing a piece of music, writing a piece of music that they in turn will then be releasing. It is all about knowing your role. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about what I think is best. It's for what, in this case, Kia wants to put out. So the beginning of any write with somebody is just getting to know them. They're the ones steering the boat during the session, not you. You may disagree with something that they creatively have. Hey, what about this or what about that? You may back your head, but if they want to do it, it's their project. If there's no label in the room, or there's no manager or A&R who's steering the boat, it's the artist, always. And so, not even the producer. It is the artist. If the artist likes it the way it is, unless that producer is being paid and that producer is sending it out for a pitch or a placement, it's the artist if it's only creative. So we just started talking, what'd you do this weekend? Where are you from? Like, she's from the Netherlands, and like, how long you been in the States? And, you're going to school, you're getting your master's, and like, this is so cool. And like, it's dope. And like, just getting to know each other. And then, the walls start coming down, and then you just start realizing like, we're not in there. Even if we didn't write a song and left, it's fine. Like, the minute you take all the stresses away of like, yo, we got to write from like 11 a.m. because I got another session at 2, and there will be days like that for sure. But we were lucky we didn't have that. And we wrote a song that resonated with who she is, what she was going through then, and I knew that she was the vehicle, that she had the fire in her to put that song out and to market that song and to promote that song and stand behind that song and believe that song. And now the song's a finalist now, right? For a UK songwriting contest, if I'm not mistaken. And it all came from such an organic, honest place. And it was a conversation that came up in this session about feeling worth it. And we go, that's it, worth it. Like, what do we have to do to be able to made feel that we are worth it, especially when you're either, whether it's a relationship or a business relationship or a friendship, not being made to feel worth it, and knowing one's worth, knowing one's self-worth is so vitally important. And it felt like an anthem to us, that especially coming from her vocals and coming from her, it's like a dude like me, I wouldn't be able to sell that. Like, they'd be like, dude, sit down, man. You're a white guy. Sit down. You're already worth it. You don't have to worry about it. Like this, in this case, it was like, it was this tumultuous like life experiences we've all had. It just sort of wasn't about us. It wasn't even about Kia at that point. It was just about the song. And so it just organically made sense. And I think that those moments that you have when you're creating music are so like amazing. And they don't happen all the time. And there will be more times when it doesn't click, it feels, than when it does, which make those times when it does click that much sweeter. And so I mean, that's basically the gist of it. I just really truly think that team building is at its core the most important aspect of this, and being able to come into a writing session with modesty, knowing your talent and knowing what you're good at doing, but it's not the Daniel show when I come into a writing session. And then that comes to the virtual part of this, is that, Zoom's got that like mute thing. So like if you're talking and somebody else is like, yo, I got an idea on this thing, and then they can't hear the person talking. I always do on FaceTime. I don't like Zoom to do writing sessions for me. I find FaceTime just easy, but 90% of the stuff that I'm doing is send me an idea. I will then load it into my DAW. I'll mess around with some ideas, send you back some ideas, and we'll just go back and forth via email. I find that works better, at least for what I'm doing right now. I've got the EP coming out next Friday, and I've got another EP that I just wrapped on called Bedside A. You'll see a little common branding thing. It's all about side, so I've got Bedside A. And then the follow-up of that's going to be a live version of the whole EP. And then I've got Neon Side A that's going to be out, that we're working on now. That'll be finished sometime in the summer, and that'll be more of like an album, like 8-9 songs long, and that'll have a follow-up Neon Side B as well. So again, trying to figure out your branding ahead of release, and roll with the punches there. So I mean, that kind of like sums up as much. I've talked a lot to you guys, so whoever's still here, I appreciate you hanging on. I'd be happy to you want to open up to some Q&A, some questions if you guys have any questions for me. Be happy to answer anything.
Yeah, as you guys type in some questions in the chat here, I have a ton of stuff I'd love to ask as we're waiting for people to ask questions. You touched on so many things, like where do I even begin? So you've mentioned some things.
That's why I normally do these for I'll have this for 3 hours long, these workshops that I'll run about songwriting. So I apologize if I was I covered too many bases here.
No, it's terrific. So there's so much important information to talk about. I'll just maybe address a couple points, and then we'll field some chat questions here.
Sure.
You touched on a school of thought that I find interesting, the sort of know your role, know sort of what you do in a project, know what your sort of core competency is, what your sort of, to use marketing lingo, your value proposition, what it is that you offer to a collaboration, to a project.
Right.
I found it interesting when you said that if you do everything yourself, that might rub some people a certain way, or some people might infer things about your disposition and your sort of work compatibility issues and stuff like this. Some people might argue that if you do everything yourself, you control more higher percentage of the track on the back end, right? You get to keep all of your all your points on various sides and stuff like this. At the end of the day, I guess you've come to the conclusion that it's almost not worth it to do that, because of the fact that certain people have certain strengths and weaknesses as creators. And so I guess maybe can you elaborate on that some more and discuss,
yeah,
I guess.
I think I could answer it, going back to the marketing terminology, I can answer it fairly specifically. It's as if you're applying for a job. If I'm applying to a job at Apple as a photographer, they aren't going to want to know how well I cut hair. They want to know how well I take pictures, what my portfolio looks like. Similarly, if you are going to be dealing directly with a producer, like Bad Bunny or Max Martin, they don't care necessarily about your production skills because they're top of their game. They want to know, great, are they a singer? Are they a songwriter? Are they a producer? You may be all of those things. I dabble in all of those things. I am primarily a songwriter and a singer, though, if I had to sell myself to somebody. So if you're able to, the least amount of things you can put on your business card, the more legitimate you may appear to somebody at the highest level of that industry. So it really just comes basically just down to branding. And if you I would never put on my resume to send to a music producer that I'm a singer, producer, mixer, mastering engineer, actor, model. They'd just go, what do you do? That's great that you do all of these things, but that means that you probably don't do any of them at a professional level. What is your professional skill set? And when you get in there, once you get the interview and you're in the room, then at that point, show them a track you're working on and be humble about it. Say, yeah, I'm just dabbling. Even though you yourself know you may have spent 2 weeks on this damn track and you're super proud of it, if you're labeling yourself if you're going into that meeting as a songwriter and you're potentially going to get a cut from that with that opportunity, then play them the track. But to market yourself doing all of these things, I find limit the responses that you'll get from said people.
All fair points. And my second question here, you had talked about various deals that you were presented with or accepted, turned down over the course of your career. A lot of, like you talked about, the start of your career was prior to the reality that is streaming. And,
Correct.
Streaming is monetized a certain way. Monetized I use loosely, in some senses, because, what kind of money are you really making on streaming unless you're at the absolute top of your game? But still, it adds up if you're out there on enough things. So I guess for people who are kind of coming into the music industry in this era where streaming is the new normal, where basically sync licensing, this idea of placing your music in media, getting your song placed on a TV show or a commercial, that's a common way to monetize recorded music. What sort of deals should people be taking now in 2021? What sort of stipulations should people be looking out for? You mentioned try to keep as much of your publishing as possible. Any other sort of guidelines you have for people navigating contract side of the business?
Yeah. I shared that long story of mine about when the industry was, when it was CDs and major labels and stuff, because a lot of the business model of that on how to market and where to market is still true today. That part hasn't changed. The metrics of how a song gets consumed by a fan base now with streaming is a different business model, but the marketing aspects of such remain the same. Spotify, just for example, back in 2020, November 2020, released something called Discovery Mode. This allowed them to have major labels and major artists pitch to curators to get placed on their playlists, on their editorial playlists, in addition to having independent artists be heard on a larger scale through their editorials. Some would say that's payola, because it's Spotify doing it. Somehow it's accepted, and so to compete with this totally new business model with respect to marketing, they're looking for how does an artist be heard? How does an artist create the brand that their songwriting, production, the artistry that they're putting out, the music that they're putting out? It needs to be packaged, three-dimensional. They need to see. Again, we're not in live shows right now, but had there not been a pandemic right now, playing live only benefits you. It only builds a fan base. I would argue to say that cities like Los Angeles are so saturated as such where it would benefit you more to drive to San Diego and play a show, or drive up to the Bay, or get out of California and play a show if that's something that's possible. Marketing agencies who run ads that we see on our Instagram and our Facebook pages hire us for a nominal fee, and we'll pitch to playlists, and we'll pitch to, for $300 we'll get you placed on playlist X, Y, or Z. Stay very weary and away from companies like this. Spotify specifically, January 1st of this year, removed over 1.2 million songs off of Spotify. And their terms and conditions included a rereading of their existing terms and conditions, which stated that no third-party marketing agencies are to be used when gaining streams from our service. Well, that limits a lot. Unfortunately, I personally had a song removed, and I don't use any third-party marketing. I ran an Instagram ad on my page with a link to Spotify, and my song was removed from this. So this is something that is happening as of today. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of 2021. This is only with respect to Spotify. To more specifically answer your question, okay, well, great. You can't tour. You're stuck at home. You're telling us now that we can't use a third-party marketing company. How do we do this? Well, if you have a link on your page if you have a link that you're running through Facebook, like a Facebook ad, a YouTube ad, which is totally legitimate, you can totally do. Make sure that the link that you have is directed to your website, or directed to your YouTube page, or directed to some smart link that has various amounts of links attached to it, maybe including Spotify. But that's just something to consider. I run a lot of ads. I find them to be helpful. You can specifically target certain demographics, age groups, etc. to do that. We are living in an era of visual marketing. If you have an opportunity to post a photo or a video, always go to video. People love seeing moving picture. The average listening span right now is 15 seconds. So even when you're on streaming, that's the average listening length of someone listening to a song on Spotify, just for example. So my suggestion to you, if you are running an ad, make sure it looks, the visuals are so important now, because if you're running an ad and it's just a photo of somebody that you don't know, the chances of them clicking on that to then go to your Spotify page, or to your Apple Music page, or to your website, or however you're using your base of marketing, is going to be that much lower. So you want to make sure that you are looking three-dimensional to these to labels, to management companies, to publishing companies, And you want to make sure that if you do get contacted, that you've got enough material in your catalog. The first question I always get asked after they like the first song is, great, what else you have? Right? So I've now strayed away. I argue to some of the clients that I work with on the songwriting portion of it to stay away from companies like Submit Hub, Playlist Push. Stay away from companies like that charge you small amounts of money, generally speaking. You know, you buy $10 worth of coins or $20 worth of coins, but they're using a lot of bots, and they're cutting down. Streaming services, especially Spotify, are cutting down on that usage. And I think from what I have learned since the first of this year, and I've spoken to 2 marketing agencies specifically about this, who I've worked with in the past, who are now having to redesign their entire business model on how they market, who are pitching to curators. They're saying that Spotify specifically is trying to cut down on that 100%. And so they removed all these songs because they're trying to clean up the millions of playlists that are currently on Spotify. So, and really have them be the one-stop shop for being able to market and promote your music. Spotify is not, it may be the king of streaming right now, but we as a community maybe I'm just being wildly optimistic, but I believe that we can reinstill value back in music and find another way of distributing. There are Bandcamp where you can sell merchandise. I have a dear friend of mine, for instance, very smartly, this is another really cool way of marketing yourself. He created a clothing line before he dropped his first EP. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's what everybody needs to do, but he created a brand. He created hoodies and t-shirts and sweatshirts, and he was already an established musician in a band prior, but he wanted to put out his first solo single. And so he created hoodies and stuff and merch, and sold that merch, and had that merch be what helped pay his bills and pay his his way to make, produce the album and market it and such. So there's so many other ways to do it. I think at the bottom line, the quality of the material has to be high. You have to continuously compare your songs. The mix of a song is so damn important. You have to compare your mixes in real monitors or real headphones. If you can't afford, you can get really top-notch monitors for like under $500. Really great monitors, but you don't need that. I got a pair of blue headphones that work great, that give me a really honest mix. You got to compare your mixes to what is currently out there right now, and if they can be better, make them better. And if the mixing engineer that you're working with right now isn't getting them to 90-95% where you need them to be, DM me. I will put you in touch with mixing engineers that I work with that are very affordable, that are like under $350, that you can mix an entire song for you, that are phenomenal. So they are out there, and I think it's just a matter of A, knowing your brand, B, making sure you're not getting caught up in the playlist push, as it were, on these things, because you will get your song removed.
Let's take a look at some chat questions here. We have a question from Kristen of how many tracks should I aim to have in my catalog before trying to get a publishing deal?
Good question, Kristen. It depends. I have, when I got signed, I had maybe a couple hundred songs. I would suggest that that's probably a good average number to, and they don't have to be finished, mind you. When I say finished, when I say songs, I have a folder when I first got signed called finished songs, and another folder called bedroom demos. And it was literally just an MP3 of me on a mic, but it was the song. It was a song in its entirety. So that still counts as a composition. And publishing deals are not necessarily looking for new talent, for songs that are completely finished. They want to know that you have the potential as a writer or as a producer to create that content. And if you're a songwriter, like in my case, and the production was lacking, they're responsible. One of their roles may be that they'll put you in touch with a producer to finish that track. And again, going back to the original point, that's up to you whether you want to pay them out with actual money or if you want to pay them with publishing, writing, and master. But I would say about 100 to 200 songs is a good number Unless, and again, I'm signed to an independent publishing deal. If you're talking about Sony ATV, or if you're talking about Universal, BMG, or whatever, you're going to need a cut. You will need a major label cut. That's publishing deals are based on the money that you're earning on the songs that are out, right? So if your value is, hey, I wrote a song for Christina Aguilera and it made $5 million at radio, then you may get offered $100,000 publishing deal from Sony off that one song, because that song generated a lot of money, and that may be one of 5 songs you have in your catalog. So just, it's kind of hard to say that like you need X amount of songs. You need one. If you get one cut, forget the first part of what I said.
Second question here. We have Elizabeth, who is a high school artist, and so she has 2 questions. One, where do you personally, and I should probably add, how do you personally release music? I guess, do you have preferred platforms? Do you have maybe strategy in terms of releasing singles? And then any advice you have for high school musicians looking to sort of get their chops up and get into the scene?
Totally. Yeah, no, for sure. The first question that you have about distributors, I personally use DistroKid. I know a lot of people do. I like DistroKid for a couple reasons. A, it's pretty easy to use. B, they don't take a percentage of your royalties like other distributors do. Like Symphonic, for instance, I think they take 15% of any money that's coming in. They will take 15% off the top. And market themselves saying, oh, we can market you and we can get you to certain curators and stuff. I like the simplicity of like DistroKid. The other thing about DistroKid that I like is I can put on the dashboard the other collaborators and put their percentage splits and then put their email address. It's super easy to use, and they'll get a notification that they click on, and they can set up their dashboard so that any money coming in from streaming, they get their money immediately, so that you don't have to get invoices from them and you don't have to pay them out quarterly or annually or however you'd pay them out if you start generating streams. So that's the service that I use now, because I would just get a small setup. I'm assuming you're both a writer and a producer, you can be doing everything at home right now. I would find a DAW, whether it be Logic or Pro Tools or even GarageBand, that you can navigate in and just start creating. I wouldn't even put like a goal on it outside of just starting basic. And the setup I have at home, kind of like turn the camera on so you can see it. I have some soundboard on the wall in front of my monitors. I've got 2 Alesis monitors that are like ancient. I got to get new ones. They're like starting to spark on me. I've got a little red Focusrite Scarlett interface, just a dual, super simple. Cloud lifter, an SM7 mic. This is like a $500 mic. The Scarlett I think is $250. The Cloud lifter is like $100. So for under $1,000, you can have a fully operational studio in your apartment or your house. Put up I bought the soundboard on Amazon for like $25-30, and it cuts down the noise substantially. I personally like the SM7. I know it's a popular mic with a lot of singers. It does cut down on a lot of. I find it to be the best apartment mic, or mic that can kill out a lot of the ambient noise because the coil that's inside. So because it's a dynamic mic, so it'll cut down a lot of the ambient noise that's going on and really focus it. It is a very low gain microphone. So similar to a lot of other dynamic mics. So you need to buy a cloud lifter or some sort of gain booster if you're not running it through, a big interface like I'm not, and that'll boost the gain. And then outside of that, start sending your stuff out. Like reach out to producers. If you're a singer, have a demo, even if it's just you and piano. Send them a video of you playing music and. See if they want to collaborate with you. See if they want to produce a track around one of your songs. The other thing too that I want to mention, and I mentioned in my the songwriting series workshop that I run, is search YouTube artists, search YouTube personalities that do cover songs. I always found this to be really cool. If you're a songwriter, right? Go to YouTube and find somebody with like, 1 million subscribers or 200,000 subscribers that do cover songs. Reach out to them and say, hey, would you be interested in recording one of my songs? Well, they do, and they put that on YouTube. That's 200,000 people that you've just reached with one of your songs as a writer that you wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So it's just a matter of like shifting your mindset, if that makes sense.
We have someone else asking, on a business card, do you prefer to consider yourself an artist, performer, singer? Like, what's your sort of, like you said, elevator pitch to someone?
I'm a musician. Whoever asked that, just put.
Excellent answer.
It's
couldn't agree more.
Who you are. Yeah, you're a musician because it's under the same umbrella. It's you're a musician, and if they ask you a deeper question than that, well, what does that mean? Then tell them, I'm an artist, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter. That's second for what I am. Artist is like, we're all artists. That's not, we're all artists. I'm a singer and songwriter, but that's under the bracket of musician. Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
So I guess if there are any other questions, feel free to type in. I have one last question here. You've talked a lot about initiatives that you're doing, as in you're not having a label do the legwork for you. You're sponsoring social media ads. You're networking with people yourself. You're doing your release strategy. You're sending out all the emails to contact all these people. A lot of people, I guess, who are new to the sort of inner workings of the music industry have this impression that you need to be signed to a big label. You need to have, big companies behind you to make it to the next level. Is there validity to that? I mean, and is that a way to go nowadays, given the sort of sacrifices inherent to signing, let's say, a major deal, like one of these 360 deals or something like this?
Right.
Is that a necessity? I mean, I would say clearly not by what we've talked about today. B, maybe weigh the advantages and disadvantages of bringing in heavy hitters like that into your team or trying to go completely independent. What would you say to somebody who's considering both options?
If you have an option to sign to a major label, listen, major labels still have a lot of money for the time being. Radio is still, Clear Channel and radio is still paying a lot of money. And so if there is even the slightest chance to get signed to a major label, I would never, ever tell an artist, do not do that. Stay independent. I would never suggest that. I think that we are in a singles market. I think that's slowly changing. On my personal opinion about it, labels have been signing not album deals. Now they're signing single deals. So we'll do a single with you. We'll do 3 single deal. They just did a J-Lo. J-Lo just signed a 3 single deal, just for example. You think it's J-Lo, they do an album. No, we live in a singles market. People's attention span is super short. So I like to write in albums because the album is continuity. The album is the story. All of those songs at that point can be marketed as singles, and you can still send those out either as an independent artist, but if you do get the interest of a label, and the label asks you if they're interested in your voice and they like one of your songs, they're absolutely going to ask you what else you have. And if the other 4 or 5 songs that you have, you've written because you've been writing like it's in an album, they're going to say, wow, they've done a lot of their marketing for us. This all makes sense. It all sounds like it's coming off the same record if we decide to put this out as an album. So it postures you in a place of having more control over that. Whether you decide, you will always be independent until you decide to not be independent. So you will always be an independent artist until that deal has been made by that label, or and there's indie label deals out there, and distributors like United Masters, for instance. They're a big distribution service, and they have a deal with was it NBA 2K, like the NBA video game, and they have a deal with them to have their artists get featured on this video game, which is like an immediate sync. So look for there are other options out there, and they're becoming AWOL, for instance, and Symphonic, both distribution services, much like DistroKid. They're being more selective of the artists that they work with because they're including marketing strategies within their distribution, which you as an independent artist would have only access to had you been signed to a major label. So don't look at it necessarily as like, oh, I just want to say I'm on Sony or I'm on Warner Brothers or whatever. You have to realize that all that money that they're putting into recording traditionally, into touring, which isn't happening right now, is recoupable. You will owe that money back in streaming, which has been diminished substantially now, like Chris was mentioning, and you will have to pay that money back. So you want to owe as little as you can back to companies that are paying you advance money. And since most of the stuff you can do now independently, that's why record labels are struggling to stay afloat right now, or stay relevant, I should say, and trying to figure out ways that they can operate. And so I think that joint deals are going to be happening a lot more frequently now. Branding companies and major labels and artists are going to be just doing one-offs. But that's just my opinion.
Daniel Capellaro, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've all learned a lot, myself included, about sort of the modern music business landscape, how you've been able to successfully navigate it. But also, I think what's really important is what you said towards the beginning of the stream, which is that this didn't just happen overnight, and it didn't just happen because you wanted it to happen. You made it happen. You know, you put in the blood, sweat, and tears to grind and do all the small things that you have to do, including, you know, being charming and, you know, talking to people and networking and doing the sort of soft skill people work in LA. So I want to impress upon our viewers today that you may think that an artist just kind of popped out of nowhere because you had never heard of them before. Understand that, you know, there are a lot of people who have similar stories as Daniel, who have been in the trenches, doing everything that they need to do to get to where they want to be. There's no shame in doing anything that you have to do to make your dream happen. And so I think hearing what Daniel has had to say about how he got from basically a TV show that fell through and having to scramble to pick up the pieces and figure out what to come next, to working with all these A-list people and having command over his material and being able to have you know, the power to go in artistic directions that he wants is a testament to his hard work, a testament to all the stuff that he's done to lead up to this point. So I was really inspired by this. I hope you all were too. Daniel, again, thanks so much for lending your time to California College of Music. If you guys liked what you heard today, check us out, ccmla.edu. You can find out more about our programs. You know, we have programs for songwriters, for producers, you know, full-time, part-time, extracurricular sort of evening online classes, things like this. A way to maybe shortcut a little bit, get some, you know, skills while you're at home trying to, you know, take the next step and get to this point. So we're going to try to do these artist clinics every few months. So stay tuned for that. We'll, of course, let you guys know. Daniel Capellaro, once again, thanks so much. Please check out Daniel's music. DVNIEL is his solo project, if you want to search for that on all your platforms. So once again, thanks so much, and thanks again.
I so appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much. And just a final footnote, if any of you guys out there want to contact me, by all means, I'm on Daniel Music with the V on all Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So if any of you have follow-up questions that you weren't able to ask or get answered today, feel free. And I truly meant it. If there was referrals that any of you guys need for mixing engineers or mastering places, I'd be happy to send them out to you guys. I wish you guys the best.
Who said you can't get anything for free in LA? Thanks again. Hope to see you guys soon. We'll be letting you know about any sort of future YouTube streams. Check out the rest of our YouTube content here. We have all kinds of great discussions with CCM faculty, including Kia Knuster, who Daniel mentioned earlier. Thanks again. Hope to see you guys soon. Ciao.
Thanks, you guys.